My name is Deborah Callahan. I'm 50 years old. On Tuesday, February 14th at 9:47 in the morning, I was standing in the kitchen of the house I'd paid for with 22 years of unpaid labor, watching my husband pour champagne for a woman wearing my grandmother's pearl earrings, while he told his lawyer I was basically just a secretary who answered phones. The lawyer nodded, scribbled something, didn't even look at me. Rick lifted his glass toward Tiffany Mercer, the woman he'd been sleeping with for God knows how long, and said, "To new beginnings, babe." Then he turned to me. His voice dropped into that cold register I'd learned to recognize. "You can go now, Deb. We're discussing actual business, adult stuff." I looked at the champagne. Dom Perignon. The bottle I'd special ordered 3 months ago for our anniversary. The anniversary he'd forgotten. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the counter edge. "This is my house, Rick." "Technically," his lawyer said, flipping through papers without raising his eyes. "The property title lists Richard Callahan as primary owner. The mortgage is in his name. You're listed as co-signer, Mrs. Callahan, but that's not quite the same thing as ownership." Tiffany smiled. She was 28, blonde, wearing a cream silk blouse that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She reached across the table and squeezed Rick's hand. "Honey, do we really need to do this right now? It's Valentine's Day." "You're right." Rick stood up, checked his watch. "Deb, I'm gonna need you out by the end of the month. Tiffany's moving in. We're combining operations. Mercer Property Solutions and Callahan Custom Homes. It's the smart business move." I stared at him. 22 years. 22 years I'd managed every invoice, every permit, every payroll tax deadline, every subcontractor payment, every single piece of paperwork that kept Callahan Custom Homes running. I'd worked from our kitchen table, from hospital waiting rooms when Evan was sick, from my father's funeral, from every place life happened while Rick was out on job sites getting his picture taken with happy clients. "I built that business with you," I said. My voice came out too quiet. "I did all the books, all the scheduling, every vendor account, You did data entry." Rick's voice was flat. "I built the business. I'm the contractor. I'm the one with the license. You just organize some files." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Callahan, if you'd like to retain counsel, you're certainly welcome to do so. But I should mention that Mr. Callahan has documentation showing the business generated minimal profit over the past several years. There isn't much marital estate to divide. You may want to consider accepting a settlement offer to avoid unnecessary legal expenses." Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I didn't cry, not then. I walked out of that kitchen, got in my 2004 Camry with 187,000 miles on it, and drove to the public library. I sat in the parking lot for 43 minutes, just sat there. My phone buzzed 6 times. Rick, then Evan, our son, then Rick again. I didn't answer. Let me take you back 8 years to when I still believed I mattered. It was a Saturday morning in March. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my personal notebook spread out. I kept my own records, always had. When Rick came downstairs in his Callahan Custom Homes polo shirt, the one with the logo I designed, he kissed the top of my head, poured himself coffee, sat down across from me. "You know what I love about you, Deb?" He smiled. That real smile, the one I'd fallen in love with when I was 23. "You make everything run. I go out there and charm the clients, sure. But you're the engine. I tell everyone that. My wife runs the whole operation." I looked up from the spreadsheet I'd been reconciling. "You tell people that?" "Of course I do. You think I don't know what you do?" He reached across and tapped one of my notebooks. "These are better than anything QuickBooks could generate. You've got every job coded, every expense tracked. You're a genius at this stuff." I felt something warm spread through my chest. Validation. Finally. "I've been thinking," I said carefully, "maybe I should get my name added to the LLC paperwork. Just officially. Since I do handle all the finances and—" "Babe," he laughed, Not mean, just amused. You don't need your name on paper. We're married. What's mine is yours, you know that. And he stood up, kissed my forehead again. I've got a site meeting. Love you. The door closed behind him. I sat there looking at my notebooks, told myself he was right. We were married. What's mine is yours. I believed it for 8 more years. The first real crack came on a Thursday in September 2 years ago. I was at the kitchen table processing payroll when I noticed an expense I didn't recognize. Equipment rental, $8,200, paid to a company called Mercer Property Solutions, LLC. I pulled up our vendor list. No Mercer Property Solutions. I checked our equipment logs. We hadn't rented anything that month. I called Rick. Hey babe, I'm with a client. What's up? There's an $8,200 equipment rental charge I don't have paperwork for. Mercer Property Solutions. Do you know? Oh yeah, that's for the Riverside project. I handled it directly. Don't worry about it. I need the receipt for tax purposes, and I need to add them to our vendor database. I'll get you the paperwork later. Gotta go. He hung up. I never got the paperwork. Over the next 14 months, I found 6 more payments to Mercer Property Solutions, LLC. Amounts ranging from $3,400 to $11,000. Every time I asked Rick about them, he gave me a different excuse. Equipment rental, consulting fees, land survey costs, permit facilitation. None of it added up. I started keeping a separate notebook, highlighted every Mercer Property Solutions payment, cross-referenced them with our job calendar. None of the payments aligned with actual projects. On 3 occasions, we'd paid Mercer for equipment rental on days when our crew wasn't even working. I didn't confront him, not yet. I just watched, documented, waited. Then came Christmas Eve, last year. Rick took a phone call in the garage at 10:30 at night. I heard him through the door, his voice low and warm. I miss you too, baby. I'll see you tomorrow. Evan's going to his girlfriend's family. Deb will be at her sister's. We'll have the whole day. My stomach dropped. I stood outside that garage door for 2 full minutes, listening to my husband make plans with another woman on Christmas Eve while I held a plate of cookies I'd spent 3 hours decorating for our family. I put the cookies in the trash, went to bed, pretended to be asleep when he came upstairs. The next morning, I drove to my sister's house like he expected. But at 2 p.m., I turned around, came home, parked down the street, walked up to my own house like a stranger. Through the kitchen window, I saw them, Rick and a blonde woman, laughing. Champagne on the table, her hand on his arm. My grandmother's pearl earrings in her ears. The earrings Rick said he'd put in the safe deposit box for safekeeping. I took a picture. Got back in my car, drove to a Starbucks and sat there until 6 p.m. That night, Rick asked how my day was. I said fine. He said he'd had a quiet day at home, watched football, ate leftover ham. I nodded, smiled, went to bed. I started documenting everything. February 14th, Valentine's Day. When Rick told me to get out of my own house. That was the day I stopped pretending. I went back to the library, requested public property records from the county auditor's office online. It took 3 days to get them. When they arrived, I sat in my car in the Walmart parking lot and read through every page. Mercer Property Solutions, LLC, had purchased an undeveloped 4.7-acre lot in Delaware County 18 months ago. Purchase price, $43,000. Buyer listed, Tiffany Ann Mercer, sole member. I pulled up my notebook, cross-referenced the dates. The $45,000 payment we'd made to Mercer Property Solutions for equipment rental had been processed exactly 6 days before that land purchase. My husband had embezzled our business funds to buy his mistress property. I sat in that car and laughed. Not happy, just disbelief, the sheer audacity of it. Then I went home and started copying documents, every bank statement, every invoice, every payroll record, every permit application I'd filed, every tax return I'd prepared. I worked until 3 a.m., scanned everything into my laptop, uploaded it to 3 different cloud storage accounts. At 3:47 a.m., Rick came into the kitchen. "What are you doing?" I closed my laptop. "Organizing files." He looked at me for a long moment. "You need to accept reality, Deb. This marriage is over. I'm not in love with you anymore. I probably haven't been for a long time. The sooner you move on, the better for everyone." I met his eyes. "Okay." He blinked. "Okay. Okay. I'll find a lawyer." He smiled. Not kind, relieved. "Good. That's good. I mean, you don't need to waste money on some expensive attorney. We can keep this simple. I'll have my lawyer draw up papers. You'll get something fair. I'm not trying to screw you over." "I appreciate that," I lied. "I mean it, Deb. You've been a good wife, a good mother. We grew apart. It happens." I nodded, said nothing. He went back to bed. I kept copying files. By March, I'd moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on Hawthorne Street. Rent, $875 a month. I got a part-time job at a roofing supplier doing accounts payable and scheduling. 20 hours a week, $16.50 an hour. It wasn't enough to live on, but it was something. My boss, a guy named Tom Hendricks, was kind, older, gruff. On my second day, he watched me reorganize their entire filing system in 4 hours. He leaned against the doorframe. "You've done this before." 22 years. "Divorce?" I looked up. "How'd you know?" "You've got that look. My ex-wife had it too. That thing where you're competent as hell but somebody made you believe you weren't." He paused. "You need more hours, you let me know. I can always use someone who knows what they're doing." I almost cried. Instead, I said thank you and went back to work. Rick's settlement offer arrived 3 weeks later, delivered by a process server to my apartment at 7:18 p.m. on a Tuesday. I opened the envelope standing in my doorway. He was offering me $22,000 total for 22 years of marriage, no share of the business, no retirement account split, no house equity. Just $22,000 and a provision that I waive all future claims to Callahan Custom Homes assets. The letter from his attorney stated, "Given Mrs. Callahan's limited financial contributions to the business operations and Mr. Callahan's significant personal investment in building the company's reputation and client base, this settlement represents a generous offer." I read it twice. Then I called the number on the card Tom had given me. His brother-in-law was a divorce attorney. I left a message. An hour later, my phone rang. "Mrs. Callahan? This is David Brennan, Tom's brother-in-law. He told me a little about your situation. Do you have time to talk?" "I don't have much money for a retainer." "Let's worry about that later. Tell me what happened." I told him everything. The business, the unpaid labor, the embezzlement, the mistress, the property purchase, the settlement offer. Silence on the other end. Then, "Do you have documentation?" "Yes." "How much?" 22 years worth. Bank statements, invoices, payroll records, tax returns, permit applications, job calendars, personal notebooks with daily logs, copies of everything." Another pause. "Mrs. Callahan, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. How organized are these records? Chronological, cross-referenced, color-coded, digital and hard copy backups." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Your husband's an idiot. I'll take your case. We'll figure out payment. Can you meet me tomorrow morning?" "Yes." "Bring everything." The next morning, I showed up at David Brennan's office with 4 banker boxes. He spent 6 hours going through my files. Didn't say much. Just read, made notes. At 3 p.m., he looked up. "You didn't just work for this business, Mrs. Callahan. You ran it. Do you understand that?" I answered phones. I did filing. "No." He tapped one of my notebooks. "You managed payroll for 17 employees. You maintained vendor relationships with 43 subcontractors. You processed permits for municipal, county, and state jurisdictions. You prepared quarterly tax filings. You reconciled bank accounts. You track job costs? You. He stopped. This isn't data entry, this is operations management, financial management. You were the CFO. You just didn't have the title. Something inside me cracked open. Rick said I was basically a secretary. Rick's full of shit. David closed the notebook. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to file a response rejecting his settlement offer. We're going to request full business valuation. We're going to subpoena his bank records. And we're going to very politely ask him to explain $45,000 in payments to his girlfriend's LLC. He'll fight. Good. Let him fight. You've got evidence. He's got lies. Lies don't hold up in court. I nodded, tried to breathe normally. What if I can't afford? We'll work it out. I've got a feeling your husband's about to pay my fees for you. 3 weeks later, we filed our response. 2 days after that, Rick called me. I was at work. I let it go to voicemail. He called 4 more times. Finally, I answered. What the hell are you doing, Deb? Responding to your settlement offer. You hired a lawyer? Are you serious? Do you have any idea how much that's going to cost? I'll manage. You can't afford a lawyer. You're working part-time at a lumber yard. You're living in some shitty apartment. Be realistic. I am being realistic. This is ridiculous. You're being vindictive. We can settle this like adults. I don't think $22,000 for 22 years is settling like adults. What do you want then? You want me to give you the business? The business I built? The business with my name on it? I want what I'm entitled to under Ohio law. He was quiet. Then, you know what? Fine. Go ahead. Waste your money. My lawyer's going to bury you. You've got nothing, Deb. No case, no leverage, nothing. You're going to end up with even less than I offered. Maybe. This is your last chance. Take the deal. Walk away. Move on with your life. No. He hung up. I stood there in the break room at the roofing supplier, holding my phone, shaking. Tom walked by. Stopped. You okay? My husband says I have nothing. Your husband's an asshole. He poured himself coffee. You need anything? You let me know. I nodded, went back to work. The public humiliation came 2 weeks later. I was at the roofing supplier processing an order when Rick walked in. He didn't see me at first. He was talking to Jeff, the sales manager. Loud, casual, the way he talked when he was playing the good guy. Yeah, we're expanding operations, merging with Mercer Property Solutions. Big things coming. You guys should get on our vendor list. I'll make sure you get priority billing. Jeff glanced toward the back office, saw me. His expression shifted. Rick, I think. Rick turned. Saw me. His face hardened. Deb, didn't know you worked here. 4 weeks now. He looked around. The shop had gone quiet. 3 other guys were pretending not to listen. Rick smiled. That public smile, the one he used on clients. This is good. Honest work. I'm glad you're staying busy. I didn't respond. He stepped closer, lowered his voice just enough to sound confidential, but still audible to everyone in the room. Look, I know you're upset. I get it. But dragging this out isn't going to change anything. You're just making it harder on yourself and on Evan. Evan's 24. He'll be fine. He's worried about you. Living in that apartment, working here. He thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. My face burned. I kept my voice level. I'm not having a breakdown. Okay, sure. But hiring a lawyer? Rejecting a fair settlement? Deb, come on. This isn't you. You're not vindictive. You're not... He paused, looked around at the watching faces. You're better than this. Something inside me hardened, went cold and clear. I need to get back to work. Right, of course. He turned to Jeff. Good seeing you, man. I'll send over that vendor application. Then back to me. Take care of yourself, Deb. He walked out. Nobody said anything for a full minute. Then Jeff cleared his throat. That was awkward. Sorry. Not your fault. Tom came out of the back office. He'd heard everything. He looked at me for a long moment. You need to take a break? No, I'm okay. You're more than okay. He jerked his head toward the door Rick had just walked through. Guy's a piece of shit. Everybody knows it. I went back to processing orders. My hands were steady. Something had shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. Done performing. Done shrinking. Done apologizing for existing. That evening, I went home and opened my laptop, pulled up every file I had: bank statements, invoices, tax returns, job logs, personal notebooks. I cross-referenced every Mercer Property Solutions payment, tracked every dollar, built a timeline. By midnight, I had a 47-page document showing $63,400 in total payments to Mercer Property Solutions, LLC over 19 months. Zero legitimate business justification for any payment. Direct correlation between payment dates and Tiffany Mercer's personal property purchases. Falsified expense categories on tax returns. Underreported business income to minimize my potential marital share. I saved it. Sent it to David Brennan. Subject line: Discovery. He called me at 7 a.m. the next morning. Where did you learn to do forensic accounting? I didn't, I just kept good records. Mrs. Callahan, this is extraordinary. This is better than most CPAs could produce. You've documented a clear pattern of embezzlement and fraudulent transfer, and you've tied it directly to his personal relationship with Miss Mercer. Is that enough? Enough? This is a gift. Your husband just handed us his entire case on a silver platter. What happens now? Now we file a motion for emergency financial relief and request a full business audit. And we very politely suggest that Mr. Callahan might want to reconsider his settlement position before this gets in front of a judge. 1 week later, Rick's lawyer called David. Requested a settlement conference. David called me. They want to negotiate. What should I ask for? What do you want? I thought about it. 22 years, every invoice, every payroll run, every midnight tax deadline, every permit application, every hour I'd spent building something I'd been told didn't belong to me. I want half the business value, half the house equity, half the retirement accounts, and I want him to repay every dollar he stole. Done. I'll draw up our counteroffer. The settlement conference was scheduled for April 28th. The morning before, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Mrs. Callahan, this is Patricia Voss. I was a subcontractor for Callahan Custom Homes. Electrical work. I heard about your divorce. I wanted you to know something. She paused. Your husband tried to stiff me on payment 3 times. Every time you called me, apologized, got me paid within 48 hours. You saved my business twice. I don't know what's happening with your case, but if you need a witness, I'll testify. Rick Callahan's a liar, and you're the only reason that company functioned. I sat down. Thank you. I mean it. You call me if you need me. She hung up. I sat there for 10 minutes. Then I called David. I just got a call from Patricia Voss. She said she'd testify if we needed her. The electrical contractor? Yes. Interesting. That makes 4. 4? 4 subcontractors who've called my office in the past 2 weeks offering to testify on your behalf. Apparently, word's gotten around. People remember you, Mrs. Callahan. They remember how you treated them, how you made sure they got paid, how you answered their calls at midnight when there was a problem. My throat tightened. I was just doing my job. No, you were doing everyone's job, including your husband's. The settlement conference fell apart in 47 minutes. Rick's lawyer opened with a revised offer: $65,000 and a 5-year payout from business profits. I declined. David presented our counteroffer: half of everything and full repayment of embezzled funds. Rick's lawyer laughed. Actually laughed. Said we were delusional. David slid my 47-page forensic analysis across the table. Perhaps you'd like to review this before you respond. Rick's lawyer spent 20 minutes reading. His face changed. We'll need to consult with our client. The conference ended, no settlement. 2 weeks later, we got the court date, June 15th, Licking County Common Pleas Court. Judge Marianne O'Connor presiding. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. I wore the one good suit I owned, navy blue, bought it at Goodwill for $18. David met me outside the courtroom at 8:30. You ready? No? Good. Nervous is good. Nervous means you care. Just answer the judge's questions. Tell the truth. Let the documents speak. We walked in. Rick was already there, sitting at the defense table with his lawyer and Tiffany. She'd shown up, wearing a cream dress, smiling, like this was a social event. I sat down, didn't look at them. The judge entered. We stood. She sat. We sat. She looked at both sides. We're here on the matter of Callahan versus Callahan, dissolution of marriage, division of marital assets. Let's begin with opening statements. Mr. Morrison? Rick's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is a straightforward dissolution. Mr. and Mrs. Callahan were married for 22 years. Mr. Callahan built and operated a successful construction business, Callahan Custom Homes. Mrs. Callahan provided administrative support on a part-time, informal basis. The business is solely owned by Mr. Callahan and represents his separate property. Mrs. Callahan is seeking an unreasonable division of assets that would effectively penalize Mr. Callahan for his entrepreneurial success. Judge O'Connor looked at David. Mr. Brennan? David stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Callahan didn't provide administrative support. She managed the entire business operation for 22 years without title or compensation. She handled all financial management, payroll, vendor relations, permitting, and tax compliance. Mr. Callahan has systematically misrepresented her contributions while simultaneously embezzling marital funds to benefit his extramarital partner, who is present in this courtroom today. The judge's eyebrow went up. She looked at Tiffany. Is that Ms. Mercer? Tiffany's smile faltered. Rick's lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, Ms. Mercer is here as a business associate. She and Mr. Callahan are planning a legitimate business merger. I didn't ask why she's here. I asked if that's Ms. Mercer. The judge's voice was flat. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. For the next hour, David walked the judge through my documentation. Every invoice, every payment to Mercer Property Solutions, every cross-reference, every timeline discrepancy. He presented testimony from 4 subcontractors. Payroll records showing I'd been the authorized signatory on all employee checks. Tax returns I'd prepared and filed. Rick's lawyer objected 6 times. The judge overruled him 5 times. Then the judge turned to me. Mrs. Callahan, I'd like to hear from you directly. Can you explain your role in Callahan Custom Homes? I stood. My hands were shaking. I gripped the table edge. Your Honor, I managed all back-office operations for 22 years, payroll for 17 employees, vendor accounts for 43 subcontractors, permit applications for every jurisdiction we worked in, quarterly tax filings, bank reconciliation, job costing, scheduling. I worked from home, so I didn't have an office title, but I ran the financial and administrative operations. Did you receive compensation? No, Your Honor. We were married. We shared household income. I didn't have a separate salary. Did your husband acknowledge your contributions? I hesitated. Privately, yes. Publicly, no. What changed? He started an affair with Ms. Mercer. He began transferring business funds to her LLC. When I asked for documentation, he refused. When I filed for divorce, he offered me $22,000 for 22 years of work. The judge looked at Rick. Mr. Callahan, do you dispute that your wife managed these operations? Rick stood. He looked confident, rehearsed. Your Honor, Deb helped out. I appreciate that, but she wasn't running the business. She answered phones, filed some paperwork. I was the licensed contractor. I brought in the clients. I managed the builds. The business succeeded because of my reputation and my relationships. Did your wife handle payroll? She processed it. I approved it. Did she file tax returns? She prepared them. My accountant reviewed them. Did she manage vendor payments? She cut the checks. I authorized them. Judge O'Connor's expression didn't change. So your position is that your wife performed all the administrative and financial functions of the business, but you maintained final authority? Yes, Your Honor. And you believe that means she has no ownership interest? The LLC is in my name. I built the company. She was supportive, but it's my business. The judge nodded, wrote something. Let's talk about Mercer Property Solutions. Mr. Brennan has presented evidence of significant payments from Callahan Custom Homes to an LLC owned by Ms. Mercer. Can you explain those payments? Rick glanced at his lawyer. Equipment rental, consulting fees, legitimate business expenses. Do you have documentation supporting these expenses? Some of it's been misplaced. $45,000 in expenses and you don't have receipts? It's a construction business, Your Honor. Things get lost. Mrs. Callahan seems to have kept very thorough records. Did she not document these expenses? She didn't have access to those particular transactions. I handled them directly. Why? Rick paused. They were sensitive business matters. Sensitive how? Proprietary. Strategic planning. Judge O'Connor leaned back. Mr. Callahan, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I'd like a direct answer. Did you transfer business funds to Ms. Mercer for personal purposes? No, Your Honor. Did you have a romantic relationship with Ms. Mercer while married to Mrs. Callahan? Rick's jaw tightened. Your Honor, my personal relationships aren't relevant to the business valuation. Answer the question. Yes, but that doesn't mean the business payments were— Thank you. The judge turned to David. Mr. Brennan, do you have evidence linking these payments to Ms. Mercer's property purchases? Yes, Your Honor. David stood, presented the timeline. The $45,000 payment on March 12th. The land purchase on March 18th. The exact dollar amounts. The judge reviewed it, looked at Rick. This is a remarkable coincidence. Rick's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, correlation doesn't prove causation. There could be perfectly legitimate. Mr. Morrison, I've been a judge for 19 years. I know the difference between coincidence and fraud. She looked at Rick. Do you have an alternative explanation for why Miss Mercer purchased property 6 days after your company paid her LLC $45,000? Rick's face went red. Your Honor, those were separate transactions. The business payment was for consulting services related to property acquisition strategies. The fact that she used those funds to purchase property is her business decision. So you paid her $45,000 to advise you on property acquisition, and she immediately used that money to acquire property herself? It's not illegal to pay a consultant. No. But it is illegal to embezzle marital assets to benefit a romantic partner. The courtroom went silent. Judge O'Connor looked at me. Mrs. Callahan, I have a question for you. You've presented extensive documentation. Bank statements, invoices, personal notebooks. This level of record-keeping is extraordinary. Why did you keep such detailed records? I stood. I didn't know I needed to prove anything, Your Honor. That's how I work. I kept records because the business needed them. Tax audits, client disputes, permit verification. I kept copies because I wanted to make sure nothing got lost. Did you anticipate needing these records for this divorce? No, I didn't know there would be a divorce. I didn't know about the affair or the embezzlement until 6 months ago. So you kept 22 years of financial records purely for business purposes? Yes, Your Honor. The judge nodded, wrote something else. Then she looked at Rick. Mr. Callahan, your wife just testified that she maintained comprehensive business records for 2 decades. You've testified that you were the final authority on all business decisions. If that's true, why didn't you maintain these records yourself? Rick stared at her. I trusted Deb to handle that. So you trusted her to maintain the financial records that prove the business's existence and compliance, but you don't believe she contributed to the business's success. That's not what Let me be clear, Mr. Callahan. I'm looking at 22 years of documentation showing your wife managed every operational and financial aspect of this business. I'm looking at testimony from multiple subcontractors stating she was their primary contact and the reason they got paid. I'm looking at tax returns she prepared, permits she filed, payroll she processed. And I'm looking at evidence that you systematically transferred business funds to your romantic partner while telling your wife the business was barely profitable. She paused. Do you understand how this looks? Rick's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we'd like to request a brief recess to... Denied. I've heard enough. Judge O'Connor looked at both sides. Here's what I see. Mrs. Callahan performed the functions of a chief financial officer and operations manager for 22 years without title or compensation. Mr. Callahan benefited from her labor while misrepresenting the business's financial status and transferring assets to a third party. This is not a case of administrative support. This is a case of unpaid executive management and marital asset dissipation. She looked at me. Mrs. Callahan, you don't need to be in this courtroom. Your records speak for themselves. I'm ordering a full business valuation by an independent appraiser. I'm ordering Mr. Callahan to account for every dollar paid to Mercer Property Solutions, LLC. And I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all business assets pending final division. Rick shot to his feet. Your Honor, that will destroy the business. I have active projects, payroll obligations. I can't... You should have thought about that before you embezzled marital funds. The judge's voice was ice. The freeze is effective immediately. We'll reconvene in 60 days for final disposition. Mrs. Callahan, do you have questions? I stood. My voice came out steady. No, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Callahan, I suggest you reconsider your settlement position. If this goes to trial, I will not be lenient. Do you understand? Rick's face was white. Yes, Your Honor. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. I sat down. Didn't move. David leaned over. You did it. I didn't do anything. The records did it. No, you did it. You built the case. You documented everything. You showed up. I looked across the courtroom. Rick was standing with his lawyer and Tiffany. Tiffany looked like she'd been slapped. Rick looked like he'd aged 10 years. His lawyer was talking fast, gesturing. Rick shook his head, said something I couldn't hear. Then he looked at me, for just a second, and I saw it. The moment he realized he'd lost. I stood, walked out, didn't look back. In the hallway, 4 people were waiting. Patricia Voss, Tom Hendricks, 2 other subcontractors I'd worked with years ago. Patricia hugged me. We heard the judge's order. You won. It's not over yet. It's over. He's done. Everybody knows it. Tom handed me a coffee. Thought you might need this. I took it, realized I was shaking. Thank you. You okay? I don't know. He nodded. That's fair. 3 weeks later, Rick's lawyer called David. New settlement offer. $340,000 cash, half the house equity, half the retirement accounts, and an agreement that I would have no further claim on Callahan Custom Homes. Total value, approximately $520,000. David called me. What do you think? Is it fair? It's more than fair. The business appraisal came back at $680,000. You're entitled to half, but the liquidity issues would drag this out for years. This offer gives you clean resolution and immediate funds. What about the embezzlement? He's agreeing to count the $63,400 in Mercer Property Solutions payments as marital dissipation. It's factored into the settlement amount. You're getting compensated. And he doesn't admit wrongdoing? No admission. But everybody knows. The court record shows it. His reputation in the contracting community is destroyed. 4 major subcontractors have told other contractors what happened. He's not getting new projects. The business is dying. I thought about it. 22 years. $500,000. Clean break. Okay? Okay? I'll take it. The final decree was signed on July 22nd. I got a cashier's check for $340,000 and the deed to half the house. Rick kept the business. 30 days later, I heard through Tom that Callahan Custom Homes had lost two major contracts. Subcontractors were demanding payment up front. Rick had to lay off half his crew. Tiffany Mercer left him in September, moved to Columbus, started dating a real estate developer, posted photos on Instagram with her new boyfriend and captions about new beginnings and leaving toxic situations. Rick called me once. October, late at night. Deb, I'm sorry. Okay. I mean it, I fucked up. I took you for granted, I was an idiot. Okay. I'm losing everything. The business is going under. I'm going to have to sell the house. Evan won't talk to me. I'm sorry. I sat in my apartment, looked at the photo on my desk. Me and Evan, his college graduation, 4 years ago. He was smiling. I was smiling. We looked happy. Rick, I forgive you, but I don't want you in my life anymore. I hope you figure things out, I really do, but I can't help you. I know. Goodbye. I hung up. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a two-bedroom apartment in Worthington. I've got a full-time job as an operations manager for a mid-sized HVAC company. Salary, $72,000 a year. Benefits, retirement matching. My boss knows my name, knows what I do, puts my title on my business cards. Evan visits twice a month. We have dinner. Talk. He apologized for believing his father's version of events. I told him it wasn't his fault. He's in therapy now, processing, healing. I haven't touched most of the settlement money. It's in a savings account earning 4.2% interest. I'm thinking about buying a small house. Something that's mine, something nobody can take away. I planted a garden on my apartment balcony. Tomatoes, basil, lavender. They're growing. If you're watching this, and you've ever been told that what you do doesn't matter, that you're just an assistant or just helping out, I want you to know something. Your labor has value. Your time has value. Your expertise has value. Keep the receipts. Document everything. Not because you don't trust people, but because people forget. And sometimes people lie. You don't need permission to protect yourself. You don't need permission to demand what you're worth. You just need records and courage. If you've ever had to prove your own worth in a courtroom or a conference room or a conversation, type "I showed the receipts" in the comments. Or if you're still gathering evidence, type "I'm keeping records." Both are valid, both are strong, and if this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. I'm Deborah Callahan. I'm 50 years old, and I finally have a business card with my name and my title on it.